Folks, thanks for tuning in. Let me give you a heads up right away. You're going to hear lots of background noise because I've been traveling through airports a lot the last couple of days. So I'm at an airport, and if you hear your flight number being called, head to that exit right away, please. So thanks for tuning in. I do want to get this out to you. Some amazing things today to talk about. The usual, you're getting things that are behind the news that you're not going to get. Almost every one of the items today that we're going to look at, it's really suggesting a trend in one way or another, some real breakthrough things happening here and around the world. Last night, if you tuned in, I gave a short broadcast and from Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Canada. It was cold, it was late, it was almost midnight. It was standing by the eternal flame with the Parliament buildings behind, and I was talking about what's called Bill C9. That particular bill, which has various names to it, combating hate, for instance, is one of them. Interesting, it's a bill about speech, and even passing the bill in the House of Commons, it was pushed through faster than most bills are. So kind of ironic that it has to do with free speech, and it was clamping down on free speech even in its process. But it has to do with hate or promoting hate. That is what the so-called intent of it is. What's really remarkable is that it was directly focused on religious rights and previously constitutional rights that had always been in place forever in Canada, giving people the right to speak freely, especially when the topic they're talking about is based on religious freedom. And that has been removed. It was called the good faith provision. Bad faith has been shown by the majority Liberal Party. They're taking that away. And in the debates themselves in the House of Commons, there were members of Parliament who were actually reading scriptures that they said they found offensive. So this is a remarkable, we've seen nothing like it really, certainly in recent history, certainly in the democratic world, maybe not even in the communist world. We'll have to check the history on that. But that bill passed its third reading. It has now become law. My prediction is you are going to see many cases now where people who get offended by what somebody says and feel insulted or have their feelings hurt are going to have stronger provisions than ever to criminally charge. And this actually covers ministers, pastors, it covers people. It's not just churches and synagogues, could be mosques also. So a remarkable development. The media, mainstream media, has been predictably kind of docile on this because they don't like most religious texts anyway. But it goes even beyond that to striking real freedom of diversity of expression. It's going to be a nightmare, I predict, in the months and the years ahead. Hopefully it won't clear the Senate, but in Canada, the Senate is not elected. They are appointed. The majority were appointed by Liberals. So the possibility of it being stopped at the unelected Senate is small. We'll see where that all rolls out. Well, going back to it, I'd like to keep you focused at the start of the casts each day on what's happening relative to Iran. Well, another major leader of the radical Islamist terrorist regime in Iran has been taken out. This time it's the head of the Navy, and this guy was charged with looking over and continuing to restrict traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, and he was eliminated. Ali Reza Tansino is his name. I don't want to insult his family by not pronouncing his name correctly, but he is gone to join the Ayatollah, and where he is with Hitler and other places in that great eternal divide. So remarkable development there. It's also, isn't it fascinating how, here in this fairly brief encounter so far with Iran, between Israel and the U.S. and some Arab countries, they've taken out Iran's Air Force, taken out the Navy, they've sunk it to the bottom of the sea, they've taken out its nuclear capacity, they continue to hit the ballistics capacity. Every time a new major leader is announced, he gets taken out. But you listen to mainstream media and it sounds like they're losing the war. Kind of strange, but we'll see how this continues to progress. President Trump extremely upset today, sending out on his Truth Social a strong message to NATO, deeply regretting the fact that NATO countries are not helping with protecting the Strait of Hormuz and keeping it open, not helping it to protect from the missiles of the murderous regime and the radical terrorists. And a lot of people actually, Canada, the U.S., feeling a bit badly about that, where we reflect back on the First World War, the Second World War, where Canadian and U.S. soldiers spilled blood and died on European soil to protect from Hitler and others. And now NATO showing that they don't really want to get involved in this. WTI is still around $100 a barrel, not crashing up to $150 as people had been predicting, as more oil opens up and more oil becomes available. But there's still no question this is affecting price at the pumps and the stock markets in general. You see things move around, they bounce around as is predictable. And as we said last week, all major central banks, which had been looking at the possibility of a decrease in interest rates, not so much right now with all this instability. So if you're looking to make money on the stock market, really it's small stocks. If you have the ability and the insight to grab some of the ones that are capitalizing on a particular trend, just as an example, a mining stock by name of Hycroft Mining, they shot up 70% just based on the prospectus that they filed relative to what they're going to be doing in terms of gold mining and some good projects there. So things moving around, stay alert, and remember when people say how much have you lost in the stock market, you don't lose until you sell. So things will stabilize and move up once again. It's a remarkable development. Talk about things that are going to set changes. Some moms in LA and New Mexico have won, I think it's going to be a landmark case. They sued Meta and they sued YouTube on the issue of their kids being addicted to the internet and on social media. This case was quite a while in the courts, and of course those large media platforms, Meta and YouTube, you can't get much bigger, spending millions of dollars on lawyers. Anyway, the parents won the case. There's going to be one award of $3 million to one parent, one of 3.7. This is in LA, also in New Mexico. This is going to be radical. This is going to have a huge impact on social media and the companies that run them. We expect, of course, this will be appealed, but absolutely breakthrough stuff there. And good for the moms, good for the parents in taking this issue up, but there'll be ramifications, both positive and negative. In Canada, there are similarly a number of school boards, public school boards and independent school boards in Ontario, also in court on similar lines against the large internet companies. Now, just because there's a rule in the U.S. doesn't mean it has to affect or will have bearing on the one in Canada, but these things are sometimes influential, so we'll watch that. A remarkable discussion and information that continues to come out from the Tumbler Ridge tragedy, where, as you remember the case, the transgender shooter killed not only mother and half-brother, but then went to the school, killed 5 students and a teacher's assistant. Some of the major media outlets still just say her, refer to the shooter as her, not even mention the fact this was a transgendered biological male who did these killings. But at the National Prayer Breakfast in Ottawa, which takes place every year, was over 1,600 people attended, members of Parliament, ambassadors, is very well attended. And a remarkable, some revelations from the member of Parliament who represents that area. His name is Bob Zimmer. And he talked about the fact that he had a message for the parents, a message for everybody. While that horrific shooting was going on in one of the rooms where kids were hiding themselves and absolutely terror-struck, and a number of kids had been shot, a 12-year-old girl, Christina, dragged 2 of those kids, Abel Mwanza, hope I pronounced his name correctly, and Maya Gabella. They had both been shot critically, and she was able to drag them to safety under a table. Very tragically, within about 30 minutes, Abel Mwanza died. Just a heartbreaking thing, 12-year-old boy. Maya Gabella, and everybody's been following her case very carefully, in hospital in a coma. And the Christina was able to, has just gone just recently to the parents of the 12-year-old boy and said, I have a message for you. And the message was, and he must have known that he was dying or near death, this 12-year-old boy. He said, tell my mom and my dad that I love them. I can tell you folks, in a room of 1,600 people, yesterday when this was being announced and this was being shared. He had permission from the parents to do this. There was not a dry eye in the place. There will probably be, there's talk of a national inquest, a commission of inquiry to look into everything that was involved in this particular situation. So heartbreaking news there. The one positive side is that young girl, Maya, apparently is recovering. She's appearing to move one arm and leg. There are signs that she may be recovering. We don't want to raise people's hopes there, but prayers are going out for sure. Well, in the municipality of Didsbury, Alberta, kind of, again, this will be trend-setting. This could affect other municipalities. The council there has made a decision. They took a vote that in public spaces only government flags and only government insignia will be displayed. They were getting increasing requests from LGBT groups wanting to display their material or paint the sidewalks, pride groups wanting to paint the sidewalks, pro-life groups wanting pro-life messages painted, and I think they did a wise thing here. They said, you know what, it's just going to be official government displays here, flags and other things. There's lots of private spaces where people have the freedom to express themselves, so they've taken steps to do that, and that follows another municipality in Westlock. This was in 2024. They did something similar. So I'm sure they'll get accused of all kinds of ulterior motives. But you know, the public space gets crowded, and I think they made a wise decision here to do this. Well, another kind of breakthrough announcement in the province of Ontario, Canada. The premier there, who has been quite rightly really raising concerns about the so-called safe injection sites and making drugs available free to people. A similar policy was enacted in British Columbia a number of years ago, proved out to be an absolute complete disaster. As we predicted over 10 years ago, we predicted, a number of us, that this would be a disaster, trying to cure drug addiction by giving out free paraphernalia, free drugs, and safe injection sites. And Premier Ford compares this to giving gift cards to alcoholics to go to liquor stores. So those types of statements, of course, will help in a way actually to guide policy, but it reflects what people are largely feeling about that policy. In Calgary, interesting breakthrough. We've seen a lot of situations in the U.S. recently where mayors, councillors, and others are being investigated for fraud. And in Calgary, now I'm being very careful to say this is just an investigation. There are no allegations and nothing is proven in court, but the former mayor of Calgary, Jyoti Gondik, and some councillors, both existing councillors and others, they have been notified by the police. They've been approached by the police. They have had to turn in their cell phones. The investigating people want to look through their cell phones for material. Nothing's being said as far as what it is. So again, making it clear, no charges have been laid, but this is kind of somewhat of a breakthrough to be happening at the municipal level. Well, talking about municipalities, in Mar-a-Lago, there was an election just last night. Now, this is a state legislature, this is not federal, but in that district in which the Prime Minister of the United States, Donald Trump, lives, a Democrat actually won that. It surprised people. Her name's Emily Gregory. She's a fitness instructor, and fitness instructor for pregnant moms and moms who have postpartum. Anyway, she won that particular riding, and it's got a lot of people with eyebrows raised and wondering if that's going to be a sign of things to come for the midterms. Jimmy Kimmel is in controversy, getting into a bit of trouble this time because he was taking shots at the appointment of the new head of Homeland Security. I used to be Minister of Public Safety in Canada, so I would deal with my counterpart, was the Minister of, or the Secretary of State for Homeland Security. And Jimmy Kimmel taking shots at him, not just because he's a Republican appointee, but because he used to be a plumber. And a lot of people taking offense to that, sort of an elitist approach, saying, are you saying that plumbers can't figure things out? So he's taking a fair bit of heat, and he just took some fair bit of heat for some similar insensitive comments made relative to the Academy Awards. So does this mean hitting the plumbers, attacking plumbers, and trying to picture them as maybe less than smart and a very insulting approach? Does that mean Jimmy Kimmel is going down the drain for going after plumbers? I doubt it. Mainstream media will support him. He'll probably survive, but taking a little heat right now. In British Columbia, a woman by the name of Tanya Warner and her 7-year-old autistic daughter. Now, she's from British Columbia, but she's being detained in the U.S. in an immigration facility. And she does have a work permit to work there. We're trying to find out the details here, but she's been detained for over a week. The daughter has autism. It's these types of detentions that take away from what was always the main intent, as we understand it, was to get illegal immigrants, violent illegal immigrants out of the country. Certainly doesn't seem to be the case here with Tanya Warner. We hope things get resolved and get worked out there. As we look at other things that are going on around us, we see a very interesting trend that's being talked about, and that is that people, when it comes to items of faith, people are more and more finding their faith companion. Now, they find other kind of companions too, but finding their faith companions on AI. Of course, AI as a research tool, you can certainly research all kinds of questions relative to the Bible. You can research and find daily devotional items and things like this. But just as more and more individuals are sort of getting wired to their AI-created companion, it seems to be happening among at least a significant percentage of people of faith. And of course, the concern there is as people become more isolated, does that take away from the benefits and even actually the biblical mandate to not, as it said, not, as Christians say, not to forsake the gathering together of yourselves. So interesting to see where that trend is going to go. Are people, even Christians or people of other faiths, going to become more isolated as they find faith companions artificially generated? Not a great trend, and hopefully people will take from that and move into faith, of course, and communication with God and also with others in their community. Things to think about, folks. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.